at this point, what I want to do is turn it over to our first vendor sponsor, Infrascale. Now, Infrascale was new to me. They have a vision of eradicating downtime and data loss completely. That's intriguing. And their purpose is to make it remarkably easy and affordable for every company to protect and access their data under any condition. And we're fortunate today to have Ken Shaw on the line. He is the founder and CEO of Infrascale. He's an experienced engineer and entrepreneur in disaster recovery and cloud backup industry, and he's a serial entrepreneur who has founded and operated several software companies focused on building massively scalable cloud infrastructure, especially for disaster recovery, backup, and archive. And at this point, I'm going to turn the controls over to Ken Shaw and get a drink of water. Ken?
Good morning, John. Yes, and I'm here. We're running a little bit early, so I'm glad. I sort of just sat down with a coffee. I've been settling in and listening to your presentation, which has been terrific so far. Morning, folks, or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you're joining us from. Excuse me, I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, so I'm a bit sort of husky. But I'm the CEO of Infrascale and very excited to be here. I want to tell you about what we're doing. So Infrascale, we've been around many years now, and the mission we're solving dovetails exactly with what John was just talking about, where the data protection problem hasn't been solved, right? Despite so many innovations in the computing industry, you've still got this glaring hole around data loss and downtime. In fact, I was having dinner with a friend last night, and I was sort of talking about this idea that the computing industry has accelerated in so many ways to help us with productivity enhancements. When we write music now on our computers, and every child's homework assignment is done, on a laptop. Our taxes are digital. Everything has become digitized. And so humanity's never been creating more stuff on computers than ever before, and businesses have never been more reliant on data and systems than ever before. And yet, oddly, there's been very little progress in data protection and disaster recovery. In fact, in many ways, we're still doing what we were doing, in the 70s. Many companies are still moving data out to tape and then archiving it off-site. And so my joke was that if the computing industry was the car industry, we're all kind of driving around in cars that can go 1,000 miles an hour but don't have any brakes, right? The whole industry is focused on productivity enhancements and utilizing computing infrastructure, but hasn't focused much on protecting that data or protecting that infrastructure. So we're a small company in Infrascale. We're 170 people, but we're focused on a big problem. And so what our mission is to do is to take some of the very high-end business continuity techniques and practices leveraged by the biggest companies on earth and make them readily available and affordable for, sort of everyone else, right? So we mainly work with sort of smaller size enterprises. We've got customers as small as 50 employees, and, we've got customers with tens of thousands of employees. But we generally try and focus on serving mid-sized companies. Why? Because they've generally been neglected by the big DR vendors, right? The solutions that are out there for them, fall quite short of what they need. So with that sort of preamble, I'm going to jump into my slides. One little announcement, and this is sort of I don't have a slide for this, but Infrascale is giving away a prize today, and the prize goes to a member of the audience who asks the most questions about my presentation. How do you win the prize? You send an email to team@infrascale.com, T-E-A-M, team@infrascale.com. So as I'm talking, shoot us an email, ask a question about something I'm saying, and the prizes to be won are your choice of an Xbox One, an Apple TV, a PlayStation 4, or a Parrot drone, one of these new drones with the cameras, which are pretty fun. So, ask those questions. You can also ask questions in the Q&A tool. So that sort of makes it a little bit more fun and makes it interactive. So go ahead and do that. All right. So look, my first slide is actually a bit of an animation, and it tells the story of the way you would use Infrascale's technology. So, you've got your end users and they're working away, and then a failure happens. Now, my first job out of college, I was the guy responsible for DR. And I clearly remember a Saturday night when I got the call that all of our systems were down. It was 2 in the morning, and I was the guy responsible for, for that outage. And I did what we've all done. Got out of bed, put my boots on, got in the car, drove to the data center, started moving servers and data around, because that's what you do in a disaster. And these things always seem to happen at 1 in the morning, right, or 2 in the morning. And that is a lengthy process. And fundamentally, it's often concerned with moving data over a wire, right? Well, the problem with moving data over a wire, what do I mean by that? I mean, recovering from a backup tape or recovering from a backup storage array or an appliance or whatever, right? So the problem with moving data over a wire is twofold. The first one is it's slow, right? Particularly if that wire is, connected to a tape array. The other problem with it is that it's a variable time operation. The amount of time it takes varies with the size of the data you're moving. And what's sort of silly about that is that normally the bigger the disaster, the more the data, and therefore in this paradigm, the longer it takes to get back up and running. But guess what? The bigger the disaster, the faster you need to get back up and running. If it's a single file on someone's laptop, it's actually usually okay if it takes a day. When it's the database of the ERP, the business is shut down. You need to be back up and running now. So you've sort of got this weird paradox that exists with traditional technology, where the bigger the problem, the longer it takes, and the more screwed you are, right? So we sort of tackled this problem. We were like, okay, what if you could build a data protection system that did not involve copying data over a wire? Because when I protect something, all my data is sitting somewhere, right? It's sitting on a backup appliance, or it's sitting up in the cloud, or it's sitting on tapes, but it's sitting somewhere. And this whole idea of when there's a disaster, I'm going to copy the data back to a new computer and run it is kind of antiquated. What if I could just magically stand up all of my computers where that data is sitting? Wouldn't that be cool? And the more we thought about this, the more cool we realized it was. Why is it cool? Well, the first reason is it's almost instantaneous, right? So with virtualization of software-defined networking and software-defined storage, we can actually do what I'm talking about. We can stand up computers almost anywhere. And because you're no longer copying 100 terabytes over a wire, it can be an instant time operation, right? And so that's what we here at Infrascale do. We give you software and technology and appliances and cloud that protects all of your data. And if your production machines blow up, you can press a button and you can boot all of your computers, up to 200 at once, where the data is being protected. So that could either be on one of our appliances on-prem, or that could be out in the cloud. But there is literally no more concept of copying data, right, or doing a recovery. We've eliminated the recovery. So here's how it works, right? So in this little diagram here, I've got my end user. It's 1 in the morning. I don't know why he's working at 1 in the morning, but but the system has gone down. Instead of getting out of bed, putting my boots on, getting in the car, going to the data center, shifting some servers around, starting to copy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach over and I'm going to grab my iPad, and then I'm going to log into the Infrascale dashboard. I'm going to find the office that's down, and I'm going to hit the play button. And that is going to kick off a process that brings up all the disk images, converts them into virtual machines, injects them into a large-scale hypervisor, boots them up, sets up a private VLAN, does the IP address retranslation, and connects back to your customers or your users. It's going to do all this in about 90 seconds. So you can bring back, one of the problems with traditional technology is they give you back a file or a folder or a disk. Well, that's not what I need when I'm in a disaster, right? What I need is, I need my data center back. I need a running computer, or better yet, I need a running cluster of computers because it's serving my Oracle application. So at Infrascale, that's what we do. We give you back a running computer, or an entire cluster of computers. And so we can give you a file or a folder or a disk, but that's kind of dull, and lots of people can do that. What I think is way cooler is, with us, you can grab your iPad, never get out of bed, find the down office, hit the play button, and bring up 200 servers right then and there. Now, we guarantee that we'll do it within 15 minutes, or you get your money back, right? So we guarantee 15 minutes to be back up and running. compared to, well, actually, I don't even know the other vendors, John, that you've got coming in today, but I suspect most of them will not be guaranteeing 15 minutes. Most of them will be talking about, 4 hours and all sorts of other SLAs. And we're doing this with a lot of the technologies that John was talking about earlier, the software-defined storage, software-defined networking, the cloud. We work on any cloud, so you can use this with Amazon, Google, Azure. We've also got our own cloud offering, so quite flexible there. But the fundamental promise with Infrascale is things go down, you can bring it back up and running with the push of a button in 15 minutes or less, right? Now, it's all well and good for me to tell you that we can do that, but I'd like to show you a video of it, right? Because seeing is believing. So, and just a reminder, folks, that prize giveaway, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Apple TV, or Parrot Drone for questions. So do ask questions. Okay, I think a video is playing now. I'm getting used to 124. Yep, it is playing. So what we have here is the Infrascale dashboard. This is what I, would log into at 2 in the morning. And it's mobile friendly. You can do this on an iPad, tablet, do it on a phone. It's an HTML5 web app. And what we're going to see in this video is basically bringing an office back to life. Okay, so we've got the call, office is down. So what we're going to do here is we're going to navigate through to our list of sites. Okay, so on the screen, each row here is a site that's being protected by Infrascale. You could have to protect a site, you can put one of our appliances on the site, or you can just put software in there. So it doesn't have to be appliance-based, but it can be. So you can see here we've got a whole bunch of different offices we're protecting. I'm going to find the office that's down, right? And what's cool about this interface is I actually don't need to VPN into anything or fire up anything custom because it's all web-based and I can manage everything through one pane of glass. I don't need to muck around with any of that. So here I've drilled into that site, and here are all of the snapshots that have been taken from that site, right? And what I'm going to do here is go across to this tab called Cloud Boot, and it's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to boot stuff in the cloud, right? And so I'm going to start with the Exchange server. So I right-click that and hit boot. And then I get asked, okay, cool, what point in time do you want to roll this back to? I'm just going to pick the most recent one. Got a variety of networking options, everything from point-to-point VPN, SSH and RDP just over public internet, direct connect, MPLS circuits, a lot of networking options. But here I'm just going to go with RDP and SSH over the public internet, put in a notification address to, normally you put in a D list here. That's going to tell me when it's ready to go. Now, like I said, we guarantee to bring your machines back in 15 minutes. But as you'll see here, for individual machines, it's almost instant. So here on this screen, you can see that actually that server is now running. So let's go ahead and see if we can RDP into this machine. And remember, I haven't got out of bed yet, okay? It's 2 in the morning. I'm still in bed. Haven't even put my boots on. Okay, I've got a certificate, so I'm probably logging in. This is looking good. Okay, I got Server Manager, great. So I've got inbound connectivity into my VM. So my VM here has been booted from the backup repository, just like that, right? So you think about it, it was compressed and encrypted and deduplicated, but we can still boot it on the fly very quickly, and we're now pinging Google to verify that we've got outbound connectivity. And look, I'm a backup nerd, so I find this incredibly exciting. Because what I just did there was I skipped recovery, right? And I didn't worry about where the data was storing. It's up in the magic cloud. So all I had to do was log into a portal, find the dead office, and hit, save me. And it did. So to me, that's an incredibly exciting development in disaster recovery technology. And I'd love to hear John's thoughts on this when we get to the Q&A. And so this is why Gartner named us their cool vendor for business continuity. This is why we are the visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for DRaaS, is because we're sort of throwing out all the old preconceptions of DR and backup, throwing them out the window. For a couple $100 a month, you can now have almost instantaneous recovery of up to 200 machines in parallel in the cloud with the click of a button. And so just to sort of give you a bit more sense of what we support, I've just been asked to push to the next slide. Hopefully that has worked. I'll just get confirmation from the others on the line. Hopefully the slide up now should explain, should be the right one. So the three use cases that the Infrascale platform supports: push-button failover. That's what I just shown you. You know, sort of the boffins of the industry call it DRAS, DR as a service, or DRAS. I call it push-button failover, but the idea is push a button, bring your servers up. And we support that for physical servers and virtual servers. In physical land, we're doing it for Windows on Metal, Linux on Metal, Unix on Metal. For virtual servers, we're natively supporting VMware and Hyper-V. So John was talking about vendor lock-in. You know, this guy only supports this hypervisor, that guy only supports that one. We think that's rubbish, right? I think John does too. You know, a mid-sized company has a hodgepodge of hybrid infrastructure, so we support it all, right? So Windows on Metal, Linux on Metal, Unix on Metal, VMware, and Hyper-V. That's for the push-button DR. We also then offer cloud backup services built in, and that works on all of those same operating systems as well as their desktops and laptops, and endpoints on Mac and Windows, and even mobile devices. We can back up an Android tablet. And then lastly, data archiving. So for those of you who've got stringent requirements about retaining data for years or what have you, we have a very robust cloud-based archiving system that can save you a lot of money. On the back end, you've got total flexibility on cloud choice. You can use your cloud, our cloud, any cloud. So Infrascale has a cloud offering, but we work on Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and Amazon, of course. And then for those of you who have private cloud infrastructure, you can use that. So we run on top of Hyper-V and VMware. So very robust stack. A couple more points. Security is vital, right? We believe in a zero-knowledge approach where we cannot see your data. So data is encrypted before it leaves your office with a key that you've got, comes over an encrypted tunnel via TLS, gets to us, gets encrypted again with a key that we've got, right? So to get that data back, it's a bit like a bank safety deposit box. You need the manager's key and you need your key, right? So it's a very secure system. This is called double-blind encryption, pioneered by the US Air Force in the 70s, and it's now a government standard. In terms of sort of our scale, it's a popular service. So we have more than 1 million devices being protected. A device is usually a virtual server or a physical server for us. There's a map of the world with a red dot of all the workloads we're protecting. We're in 170 countries, more countries than the UN. We're backing up computers above the cloud layer in the Himalayas, which I think is hilarious. We're doing cloud data protection in the clouds. And then, of course, as you can see, very heavy concentration in North America and Western Europe. We're a channel company, so we work through partners. We have 900 partners around the world. If you are in Poughkeepsie, in New York, I can have a partner in your office today. If you're in Edinburgh, Scotland, I can have a partner in your office today. If on the line you are, in fact, a partner, talk to us. We would love to bring you into the Infrascale family. That brings me to our last slide. This is our big promise, right? Infrascale guarantees failover from any systems disaster in 15 minutes or less. You push that button, you can bring up to 200 servers at once, all orchestrated with scripting, networking, VLANs, and it can really save you bacon. It's very affordable. We're bringing big boy DR practices to the little guy with a Robin Hood of disaster recovery. And so, John, I think we're going to do some Q&A now, mate. Should I push
yeah, go to the poll question. Thank you, by the way, Ken. That was extremely illuminating and very entertaining. I'm hoping that 15-minute guarantee is your money back. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying it facetiously. I tend to be a little skeptical because, number one, your value case. I'll start with the first question. Your value case seems to rest on three premises. One, that the periodic snapshots are actually occurring as planned and are being updated on the destination site where you're making them, and that there is a good coherent way to demonstrate that is occurring. Secondly, that the network is available. so that I can connect up to your service when I have a disaster in my own facility. And thirdly, that the DRAS facility that I'm using isn't co-located within the same strike zone as the disaster that consumed my company. If I have an external disaster like a hurricane or a flood or something, the problem with MPLS is that MPLS in the United States, at least, is primarily in a NFL city, so it spans the distance of one end of town to the other end of town. With people in New York already have experienced a couple of superstorms like Sandy and its successor nine months later that consumed not only lower Manhattan but had a broad footprint of over 200 miles in all directions. That would have compromised their ability to access their DRAS facility. That's my biggest concern about these things, and of course those have to be worked out on a case-by-case basis. Now you're asking a poll question. Everybody, please click on one of the buttons and click submit. For this. It's not going to be displayed. It doesn't go to anybody else, but I think it is a very interesting follow-on to the presentation that was made. And while you're doing that, I'll ask a couple of the questions that came in from you with regard to Infrascale. Let's see. Oh, somebody had, is my pizza free if it takes longer than 15 minutes? Let's see here. I don't see any specific Oh, here we go. Here's a question. It says, does the Infrascale dashboard support Active Directory Federation, allowing users to log in? We don't like just SSL-based public Internet access for enterprise infrastructure assets. That's the reason for the question.
Yeah, it does. You can connect it into Active Directory. And John, just to address some of the comments you made there, I totally agree. You should never have your DRAS location in the city that you're in, right? So right. We work with our clients to make certain that they don't do that, or we strongly recommend against it. We've got 16 points of presence around the world. We will, if someone's in New York, we're going to recommend that they send their data to Utah, for example, where we have a big facility, right? So that's absolutely a vital point. Your other point about the network being down, we're designed to support what we call micro failures and macro failures, right? As we know, 95% of disasters are actually micro failures. They're inside the data center. It's a motherboard died, or a kid wrote a bad script. It's not the biblical disasters we hear about. It's not floods, fires, famines. However, we are built to handle those macro failures. So even if your entire data center is down, what we can do is bring your data center back up in the cloud, and then all you've got to do is go and change your DNS entries, right? And repoint your end users or your applications to that new cloud infrastructure and be back up and running.
Okay, we have a lot of questions coming in, and I know we don't have enough time to get to all of them, but I am going to ask just a couple of quick ones here. Does your RTO of 15 minutes include only virtual machines with ephemeral storage, or HA storage like Ceph, which this company uses internally?
Yeah, any storage, so both physical and virtual or objects.
Okay, and another question, is Infrascale providing a disaster recovery facility of its own, or do you nest inside managed hosting services and cloud service providers?
You can go both ways. We prefer for you to work out of our facilities, but we will work with whatever your hosting provider is.
Okay, and how does 15 minutes compare with other recovery options?
Well, SunGuard will offer you 4 hours or 24 hours, and they cost 5 times more than we do. 15 minutes, we believe, is probably the lowest guaranteed SLA in the industry. But far more importantly, we're doing it, at 80% less cost to you than IBM and SunGuard.
Okay, and the last question I'm going to have time for now is, can Infrascale support dedicated servers as well as VMs?
Yes.
Okay, all right. There are many, many other questions that came in, and they're as intrigued as I was by your presentation, Ken. So make sure that you give them the capability to respond to, or rather, take them offline and respond to them via email if you'd be so kind. And
yeah, we will.
I really appreciate it. Where do you come by the southern accent, by the way?
It's a little further south, a little further west. It's Australia, mate.
I love it. All right. Thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate it.